Well, you guessed it. If it's Friday morning, it is time for another episode of the About Mansfield Consumer Advice Series. I'm Steve Casillo. Appreciate you being here today. And today, as always, on Fridays, we bring in our guru, our philosopher of finance, or financial philosopher, and that would be Phillip Washington Jr. Say hello to the audience.
How's it going, audience? Thanks for having me, Steve.
And we are still in we're in the brand new studio, and you're standing in front of the green screen, which is very cool. We've only been Phillip was the first person to record in the studio, and that was last week. We're still working on getting the soundproofing up and getting things up on the walls. And in about 2 weeks, this is going to be a killer studio. But as I mentioned last week, he's no longer over my left shoulder. He is now in front of my left shoulder.
How you say enfrente de?
Yeah, let's go with that. I'm not sure what that means, but
I think I hope it's in front of. I thought I remembered that right from Spanish class.
Is that? Oh, okay. I was going to say, is that Latin? But that's close. Today we are talking about emotions, using emotions in investing, and which again, you are the host of the Wealth Building Made Simple podcast. You just recorded that episode, using emotions in investing. And when I think of that topic, I think of buying and selling at the wrong time because you're using your emotions. That, oh my gosh, my 401k or my stocks are crashing, so I need to sell. And is that am I on the right? Am I on the right path?
You are on the right path, because that's the way that I thought of it for most of my career. I always thought emotions were like negative for investing.
Sure. And
I think the reason being is because most of the time when they showed up strongly, it was either in the form of fear, as you mentioned, or in the form of greed. Which greed being like short-term thinking. I want to make money now. I want a lotto ticket, right? I want to put a little bit of money in and make money this week, next week, or 2 months from now. And so I was a big advocate of saying, don't use your emotions in investing, which was the wrong or incomplete thought, right? The complete thought is, yes, use your emotions in the investments process, but use the right emotions in the investment process.
And the right emotions are?
Optimism, positivity, joy, abundance, faith in the future. Because if you go look at the emotional state of anybody who's financially wealthy, and I'm talking about the emotional state when they're in the creativity mode of doing their art of expression, whether it be investing or growing a business. Right, they're in love with the process. Right. I don't think you're going to meet somebody who's wealthy who is not in love with the process of what they're doing to build wealth.
So, you mentioned an example on your podcast about Mother Nature and how life flows, and maybe you can expand on that or tell the audience about how that analogy.
Yeah, so I like to think of ourselves as like, receivers for different life giving or life taking away emotions. So if we were Mother Nature, Mother Nature is what forms all the life, right, in the universe, and definitely on Earth from what we know. And so Mother Nature can choose to accept life expressions, and that looks like life, right? People, plants, but you also have like rainforests with lots of life. Sure. And then you also have deserts, right? You have beautiful weather, and you have destructive hurricanes and thunderstorms, and those are the emotions or expressions of Mother Earth, where Mother Earth is accepting, life-giving emotions, mm-hmm. or rejecting life-giving emotions, and that affects life on the planet, right? So we're the same way, right? We, through our emotions, right? Emotions being like energy and motion, which again, when you study physics, this is not just some spiritual mumbo jumbo. Physics says we are energy beings, right? When the energy leaves our body, right? It stops being animated, you know. But while it's here, that energy or emotions are the energy in motion, right? It is the fundamental way that we express life, right? If you're angry, you express anger. If you're happy, you express happiness, right? So we are the receptors, like we are Mother Nature, and what we feel, we express in life.
Right.
I keep looking over at you, Steve. It's a bad habit.
That's okay. That's all right. I look right into the camera there, and you look right into that camera right over there, and we'll all get along.
Well, I'll get a
I always look at that when you make an investment, it's like planting a seed. Mm-hmm. And when the investment grows, it's creating roots. It's creating whether it's a plant or a tree. I always like to look at it as a tree because trees last longer than plants. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of that Mother Nature. When you had mentioned Mother Nature on your podcast, that it's like, okay, you're putting a dollar into this stock, and that becomes your seed. And as the stock grows, your roots and your tree is starting to take shape. Mm-hmm. And trees take a while, don't they?
Take a while, yes. And if you go stand and look at the tree and try to observe the growth and force it to grow through will, like you find out it doesn't work. Right?
Yeah,
the tree grows when you're not looking.
How many times? And literally, I have planted trees in my yard, and the most impatient tree I ever grew was a bonsai. And I wrapped the branches like you're supposed to do, which helps keep them tiny. And I'd go out there every day and I'd look at it, and finally it's like, I killed it. I sold too soon, or I sold when it was low, or what have you. But I have literally looked at trees, and I go out. I do this currently with my lemon tree. When are my lemons going to ripen? And so I assume that metaphor plays into the investing process.
It plays into the best part about if you in the investing process, if you can maintain a state of faith in the future that things always work out over time, right? And there's, even though the old life, right? If you can, like the old life that comes tumbling down, meaning like the old economic ideas that die, right? But we also have new economic ideas, so that's like faith in the future, or like life. You maintain that feeling in the expression of new life, even though you may not fully understand it. You maintain patience, right? And then you maintain the discipline to stay in those emotions. You can enjoy the process, because then you're no longer you can easily deal with fear when it comes, because you're like, all right, this fear is irrational, because like the future is undefeated and patience is undefeated. And then when greed comes, you can say, oh, patience says there's no short-term ways. Like staring at the tree is not going to make it grow faster. And then you can like enjoy the gardening process, right? You can appreciate the beauty, right, while it's unfolding. And that state allows you to, we talked about it offline when I did some of my podcast, was when you're in that good emotional state, you actually can see and be aware of what's happening, right? When you're not, you're resisting, right? Yeah. When you're in the impatient, greedy mode, like you're resistant, or you're blocking yourself from good long-term opportunities. And then when you're in the fear mode, like you're resisting like the opportunity of buying something like Bitcoin, right, at 19,000, right, or being joyful if it goes to 10,000, because you haven't forgot what the future value of Bitcoin is likely going to be based on what you understood before you were afraid. So you actually are able to think in reverse, and you can rejoice in Bitcoin coming down, right? Because you're like, yes, I'm putting money in.
That's right. It goes on sale when it goes down.
It goes on sale when it goes down.
Faith, optimism, and just watching the tree grow.
Watching the tree, or appreciating the beauty of life.
You mentioned, I want to take a second here about the fact that you no longer do cold calling. And so kind of switching topics here for a second, with the magic of podcasting. And you want to take a minute or so? We got about a minute left.
Yeah. So like podcasting is another example of being open and in a good feeling, right? I think if you listen to your feelings and you're cold calling, your feelings are telling you, right, this is not working the way it used to. And then you look at all these people. I'm like an example, and I'll tell my other friends who are in sales or sell, hey, do a podcast. You could change some of that time, use it towards podcasting. You can still, the people who are on your call list, you can call and interview and build relationships, right? You can spread your message of what you would normally would have spread when you're asking for a 15-minute call by phone. And this stuff lives evergreen, and it works while you're not working. And the same faith you got to have in cold calling, right, that you're going to run to somebody who needs it, is the same faith that you have in podcasting. It's just different. And a lot of people are resistant to it because they'll see it and they'll say, yeah, Phillip, but this only works for you. No, like what you're not understanding is like this is making just about everybody who leans into it and has faith, patience, and discipline. Like it's a lot of folks making money doing podcasting. A lot. Like way more than what you could ever believe.
And with podcasting, that same information that you are going to put out there in a cold call can go into your podcast. But we had talked about this last week, I think off the air, that a cold call may not necessarily go to someone who wants your information, whereas a podcast, someone has come to your podcast and they've clicked on it because they do want that information.
Absolutely.
So it's more client specific than a cold call. And
Yep.
plus, being hung up on is not fun.
Yeah, and it's less intrusive, right? I mean, I think when you cold call, you start from putting somebody in a bad emotional state versus if they're coming to your podcast and then you're dropping nuggets like you're doing feel good. So when they meet you, you've made them feel nothing but good. And it's not like I can't tell you how different my sales process is relative to what it was when I was cold calling. I'm not moving through resistance. They came to the podcast.
Sure.
So it's feel good. Here's my money. Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's the important part. If someone wanted more information about how they can stop cold calling, how can they reach out to Phillip Washington?
Best way is phillipwashingtonjr.com. I got some free lectures on there, and then some lectures you can buy. That's a useful tool, and our email is there as well.
That's Phillip Washington Jr. He is the Chief Investment Officer for Stonehill Wealth Management, and you can also reach out to him at phillipwashingtonjr.com. We do this every Friday. Phillip, let's do it again next week.
Thanks, Steve.